Hey guys, so today's video is on how to push up slide for downhill skateboarding. I'll be showing you what to do each step of the way with troubleshooting and useful tips as well to help you overcome any challenges. As well, I'm filming with a new camera, I'm filming with a GoPro. I don't have a microphone for it, which I'll be getting next month hopefully. So there's going to be a bit of ambient noise. So yeah, that might be an issue, it might not, but if you hear anything weird, probably is what that is. Okay, so what is a push-up slide? Push-up slide, also known as a two-handed slide or two-hand stony or glove down 180 or whatever, is basically a slide in the push-up position. Okay, do you have to learn how to push-up slide? The answer is kind of yes, the answer is kind of no. Let's look at the positives and the negatives. So push-up slide is extremely useful for coming to a stop at almost any speed. Now, this isn't to say it's the most reliable or controllable of slides, but you'll come to a stop safely and reliably, so it's extremely useful to learn. And this is also really good for when you're learning other slides or want to learn other new techniques. So let's say you're going really fast and then you get nervous or you chicken out, you can just kind of do a push-up slide and you'll come to a stop reliably and safely. So it's something that's really useful for you to have in your back pocket. Finally, it's one of the easiest slides to learn. It teaches you about braking traction, teaches you about board control, and really gives you that idea of how to make the board slide. So I say it's extremely useful to learn. But yeah, the negatives are, once you get kind of good, you're probably never ever going to use a push-up slide again, if you're being honest. But it really sets up your foundation and your techniques and all that good stuff, so I really think it's important to learn. What kind of things are you going to need to learn to push-up slide? You're going to need a certified helmet, slide gloves, and a board. Things like knee, hip pads, and elbow pads will be super useful as well. You're going to be busting your ass a lot, so hip pads and knee pads are clutch to keep you from getting too bruised up and being able to bounce back up and try the slide again. Okay, so what foot positioning is going to be best for the push-up slide? So you're going to want to have your front foot near the front truck, maybe near the trailing bolts, and then you're going to want to have your back foot over the back truck, and you're going to want to have your feet to be no less than shoulder width apart. They can be wider, but I don't recommend they be narrower. Having both feet over or near both trucks will allow you to be able to manhandle the board and really get it to slide out. Manhandling requires less technique and finesse, and which are things that are really naturally going to come with time and practice. And yeah, in terms of where you want it to be on the board, you're going to want to have your feet, or rather your toes, near the rail of the board, or rather near the edge of the board. And yeah, that's going to be the best foot positioning essentially. Okay, so the first step is we're going to practice the push-up slide positions off the board. Now, this is really important as it gives you like a reference point and kind of gives you an idea of what position you want your body to be in. So the two things we're going to practice. The first is we're going to practice the position for when we initially touch the ground with our hands. And in this position, you're going to want to have your hands over your knees and ahead of them. This is key. And you're also going to want to have your hands about shoulder width apart. And yeah, this is the initial contact with the ground. And it's really important to get this right. The other thing we're going to practice is basically the actual push-up slide position. So your hands are going to be directly under your shoulders and you're going to be fully stretched out with your feet, or rather your toes, on the board. And yeah, you're basically in a push-up position with the board under your feet. That's what it is. Alright, now let's go to the next step. So this step, we're going to start riding, just start cruising, carving, vibing and warming up. Now, key point, if you can't cruise and can't carve comfortably, then you're going to have a lot of trouble learning this. Cruising and carving are key, and the next step I'm going to be talking about is setup carving. And yeah, if you can't cruise, you can't carve, it's going to be very awkward for you to do this comfortably. Alright, so step 3, start rolling down the hill. Now, when you start rolling, you're going to want to have a bit of speed. I'm not exactly sure how fast, but you typically want it to be quicker than jogging pace. And yeah, you're gonna either want to have a mellow hill, or you're going to want to be able to push in really hard, or whatever it is, just get enough speed. The next step is you're going to want to carve Heelside, and you're going to want to carve with your arms outstretched and your palms facing outwards. Next, you're going to want to start carving toeside. Now with this Heelside to toeside carve, your goal is to kind of do like a C shape or half S shape. You kind of go like this and then you go like that, right? This is called the setup carve. Basically, step 4 and 5 are what are known as the setup carve, and they're really important, as if you do a really great setup carve, getting the board to slide is going to be really easy. Now, as you're approaching the zenith of that C shape, or rather that half S shape, you're going to want to start bending your knees and placing the pucks on the ground. Now, key point, you want to start doing this motion before you get to the top. So at the top, you're already like fully with your hands on the ground. So as you're getting closer, like let's say about this point, is when you start doing all that stuff. And then yeah. Okay, so step 6, now we're going to be putting gloves on the ground. You're going to want to bend your knees and place the pucks on the ground with your trailing hand, your right hand if you're regular and your left hand if you're goofy, might touch the ground first. And yeah, at this point you're going to be bent over with your palms on the ground, but your body's not really going to be fully outstretched. You also want to have a significant amount of weight, let's say about 50 to 70% of your weight on your hands, and you don't want to have your hands too close to the board. Another reason I said they should be over your knees is when your hands are over your knees and ahead of you like that, it's very hard for them to be closer to the board, So quick tip, mentally prepare yourself to fall once or twice as you get the balance of how much weight to put on your hands. Also, the more you practice this, you'll be able to use the motion / momentum / rotation from your shoulders and the action of putting your hand on the ground to really get the wheels to break traction, and it'll be done in one fluid motion, but this is something that's going to come with practice. So yeah, from that bent position with your hands on the ground, you can now kick the board out. It's basically just kind of pushing it out and getting yourself out into the proper push-up position. You're initially going to want to push with your back foot whilst keeping your front foot firm and planted. But once you feel the wheels sort of break traction, you can then push out with both feet and extend yourself into that push-up position. Key point, yes, you'll push out with the front foot as well, but it'll also remain firm. If it doesn't remain firm, it'll be very easy for the front wheels to grip up or to not slide at all, or for the back to over-rotate. A few other things can go wrong too, but those are the two main things. But yeah, keeping your front foot firm is key to getting the board to slide. With practice, you'll be able to get this into one fluid motion. Initially, it's going to feel really awkward. You'll have to practice getting the board to break traction and then pushing out, but with time, you'll be able to make it into one deliberate motion. Another tip when pushing the board out, really dig into the rail or really dig into the side of the board and, be firm. Try push up with both feet, be deliberate. Finally, make sure you have enough weight on your hands, otherwise it'll be very difficult to kick the board out. And yeah, you might want to have anywhere from 60 to 80% of your weight on your hands at this point. Now, some common issues at this point. So if the board keeps going straight and leaving you behind, you likely aren't keeping your front foot planted enough and you aren't getting the board to have that initial break in traction. You might need to be more aggressive with how quickly you put your hands on the ground and kick out. You might have to put more weight on your hands as well, or you might have to have a more exaggerated setup curve so it's easier to kick out the board. Try these things and one of them might stick and solve the issue. The other thing is to just keep trying and you might have a breakthrough. Most of the time how you progress with these things is just kind of hitting it and then you try something different and then it works and then you just kind of progress with that. It doesn't all happen immediately, and yeah, of course, remember to check out the upcoming troubleshooting and tip sections for more helpful information. So now let's go to the next step. At this point, if you're basically sliding, if you just kind of remain there and remain with pressure on your toes, the board should keep sliding, you should keep sliding, and you should come to a stop naturally. Just hang in there, let it do its thing, keep doing what you're doing, and you should shave off most of your speed. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you can do that, you've accomplished it, and that's the goal of this tutorial, able to come to a stop reliably. If you can do that, then congrats. Done. So pretty much it. Okay, so step 10, 180-degree slide. Again, this is optional, but if you kind of want to do like a cool slide where you slide 180 degrees and then come up off the ground, this is going to be useful for you. The key to this is pushing out with your back foot and swinging yourself using your shoulders and your hips a little bit. And yeah, it'll take some practice, but you can get it done in one session if you can slide to a stop. Probably pretty easy. Okay, and finally, the steps outlined above about getting yourself up the ground and using momentum will be key here as well. So yeah, same applies. But if you can sort of swing yourself back and get on board, then doing it 180 isn't going to be that hard, I don't think. So yeah, try it. Okay, now let's look at tips for the push-up slide. So first tip, or tip 0 rather, you're better off being really aggressive and going for it, especially if you have protective gear, you know, helmets, knee pads, gloves, elbow pads, all that good stuff. You are gonna fall, but the fall won't be that bad since you're fully protected. I also think you learn faster this way as opposed to someone who's being like too coy and is not really committed to trying. So my tip for you is really be committed, really go for it, be aggressive and send it, and you're gonna learn faster. Of course, if you don't have protective gear to facilitate this, then you know, you can try the same, but your results might be different. Probably get hurt and bruised up. Okay, my next tip is flexibility is important. If you want to make this easier for you, like do some toe touches, you know, touch your toes, whatever, legs straight, and it should help you get a little bit more limber. Tip number 2 is remember to always have pressure on your toes when you're doing this. Really dig into that board, really dig into that rail. And yeah, you can also place your back foot on the rail to get more leverage to push the board out. Tip number 3, if you can't do the setup curve consistently, you might have some luck drawing like a C curve or an S curve on the ground with chalk and trying to follow that. I highly recommend drawing 2 lines so that you can skate between them, and yeah, should help you visualize and should help you know that you're doing the correct thing. Okay, tip 4, make sure you're doing it on a road that is wide and has a lot of room. Yeah, if it's too narrow, you might feel really like boxed in and you might not be able to swing it out. So make sure you have a lot of room, and yeah, you should be good to go. Tip number 5, get wheels that are good for sliding. You can pretty much learn to do the push-up slide on any board, but wheels that are easier for sliding are going to be a better and a lot easier to learn on. Tip number 6, don't put your hands too close to the board. If they're too close to the board, you might not be able to put sufficient weight on them, and yeah, the board will be a lot harder to slide, and most times it's not gonna break traction at all. But yeah, by keeping your hands ahead of your knees, you kind of ensure that they're never going to be too close to the board. Okay, so some troubleshooting tips. The first one is don't throw yourself off the board. Your feet need to remain in contact with it, and in line with that, don't just fall off the board. You know, do a setup curve and gently get into it and put your hands on the ground. Don't just kind of like fall, you know, as though someone ordered you to give them 10 and you just fell. No, kind of go into it and try to ensure that you have contact with the board. Next one is bend your knees. Bend your knees. Bend. You're gonna have to bend so that you can touch the ground. Again, just don't fall. And I've seen it happen so many times where people just kind of like, and it's not very good. The next one is, do you have enough speed? You need to have enough speed. So either if you have a very strong push or you have a mellow hill where you can learn. If you don't have enough speed, it's gonna be hard to get the board to kick out. Another thing is you might not have enough upper body strength to keep yourself up in the push-up position, and this might be something to work on. Another thing is maybe you aren't pushing hard enough with your toes or with your feet or whatever's in contact with the board, so try push harder. Last one is, do your feet keep slipping off? So if this happens, you might not have coarse enough grip. Coarse grip makes it easier for your feet to stick to the board and not slip out, so maybe that's something worth buying. And finally, you might have more luck with being aggressive if that's something you haven't tried yet. So yeah, and after learning the push-up slide, it'll be very easy for you to transition into a one-handed toe-side slide. Basically what it is literally going to the slide as normal, and whilst you're hanging in there in the slide, kind of lift your front hand up and you'll basically be doing a one-handed glove down slide. Keep practicing this, and yeah, basically get good at one-handed two-side slides, and then you'd be able to go into it with just the right hand. And yeah. Okay, and that's pretty much the video. Big shout out to all my patrons. Big shout out to everyone who's subscribed so far. Really appreciate you guys, and yeah, I hope this tutorial was good. These tutorials are actually quite difficult to make, I'm not gonna lie. They're quite stressful to make, so I hope this one came out nice and clear and concise and very helpful. So yeah, thanks for watching.